they describe the person. And she's like, so I'm putting a bolo out on sloths from Goonies?
Yeah. Well, the picture looks more terrifying. She's like, so this is the artist rendering based off of the description you gave.
Yeah.
She's just looking at it. I'm like, it looks scary as fuck to me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. She gave a really good detail. Like, the artist who drew it took her seriously enough to actually draw it like a fucking...
That might have been one of the sketches of when they were trying to decide what this monster was going to look like.
I was like, this guy probably, like, loved comics. He's like, I feel like I'm drawing a comic monster.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to Judgmental Horror Junkies. Huh?
That was nice.
Thank you.
That was nice. I feel like it's appropriate for the score of the music in this movie.
Yeah, I like the theme from this movie, but we'll get there. I am one of your hosts, Reno Dino Valentino, head doctor at the Asylum for the Insane, and with me, as always, is Goreship, the ship that sails along the river Styx, and Malignant Boil on the ass of evil.
That's a good one.
I was just trying to bring in our movie, which is Malignant.
That was perfect. It's so good to be back in the saddle.
I know. You probably noticed this one's coming out a little late. We had some moving and some travel and some illness, and all of it just kind of smushed together to make because we record in person, we don't do it like over Zoom or anything. It's a little harder to get the microphone set on the table. I like to look my
partner at eye contact when we discuss these things.
Yes, when you're talking about something this important, you need to be face to face. I say it to Cecilia on Comic Dissection, and I say it now to Goreship.
Because there's something so impersonal about these Zooms.
I tell you,
it's just like if it glitches, I'm like, "Are you there?" And then it's just off.
You also, I also feel there's a certain energy when you're in the same room that you don't get over Zoom calls and such. I will always be a fan of the in person when possible. The person's in LA, you can't do it, but in our instance, we are close enough that we can get together and talk about horror movies, occasionally through a leftist intersectional lens, but always through a lens of people that love horror movies. And Goreship has picked our movie for this month. What movie are we going to be junking or judgmentally?
Yes, it is judging. We're going to be judging.
I almost said dissecting, and I was like, that's the other show. Other show. Yeah.
No, I decided to start this year off. We're going to go with Malignant, and it is one of my more recent favorite movies. For some reason, when this movie came out, it was hyped up and then immediately shit on.
It's a 2021 film.
We will discuss that. But back in 2021, the world was readjusting to post-COVID life, trying to get back out into the world. And so, rather than appreciating all these fine artistic expressions we have, they decided to go back to everything sucks, everything is fucking awful. Every good movie, or at least, reasonably good movie, we've seen some very awful ones, is still bad in a lot of the public mind, and I never understood it, but I love this. It's Malignant 2021. It is an American horror film directed by James Wan, famous for the Conjuring movie series and Insidious, and it was created from a screenplay by a woman named Akela Cooper. It's based on a story by James Wan, Ingrid Bisu, and Cooper herself.
Well, I didn't know Wan also co-wrote this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He added little tidbits, but the original story is based off of a short little snippet from Akela Cooper.
Screenplay adapted.
Yeah, readjusted it to make this movie work, which I thought this had so many good classic tropes done in a very fun, modern setting. And I know we talk a lot about practical effects, but this is one of the times where I'm like, I'm okay with CG, just because it worked in this tone.
I had a lot of trouble guessing where things were going. Like, I liked this movie because it itched the little, people that watch horror movies like to be, I believe this, you can correct me if you don't believe this Goreship, but I think when you're watching a horror movie, people like to try and be the smartest person in the room.
Yes, detective.
They try and be like, that's the killer. Or, oh, I bet the doll is being possessed by the girl that died in the house. And
then when you get swerved, you're like, man, I didn't call it. Or when you're right, you're like, I'm so good.
And this movie gave me enough of both. There were times where I was like, well, I have no idea what the fuck's going on. And then there were times where I that must be, and I hit it I nailed it. And so it was the perfect mix of keeping me guessing and pleasing the Riddler part of my brain where I guessed the answer, that this movie just hit a really good sweet spot for me. And I very much enjoyed it. I dare say it's probably number 3 or 4 is like my favorites of movies we've done. Like, I really had a good time with this one.
I'm so happy to hear that. It's one of my top 5. It's moved up the rankings since it came out.
Now, this top 5 all-time horror movies?
I would say in the last 10 years.
All right. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, because, like, my horror taste has shifted a little bit over the last decade. And the decade prior to that, my teenage years, it was even more different. And so it's always, like, a little bit shifts a little bit more introspectively.
Yeah, of course.
But, like, like you said, with this movie, there's a lot of things when I first watched it, I thought, oh, I think I got it. I think I know what's happening. Oh, swerve. Yeah. So the second time around, when I was paying even more close attention to, like, background, scenery, dialogue. Dialogue is a very important part of this when you watch it a second time through. That you're like, oh, so that indicates... And I'll point out specific examples here shortly, but there are so many times when going back watching this, I was like, that makes even more sense from a visual standpoint, and also from the way that they talk. It indicates, shifts in the story that are going to come later down the road. So, just like you, I really love that it kind of kept you guessing. Felt a little bit like a detective work. You're like, I got this. I know who the killer is. Yeah. So, it was also this fun little mix for me, personally. I don't know about you, but I love that this movie had a slasher/supernatural vibe all in one. Yeah? I love slasher films. It's one of my favorite genres. I would even say
there was a part, and we'll get there, but I'll mention it briefly here. The battle scene in the police precinct made me think almost of, like, Equilibrium or one of those Guntata movies where, like, they're freaking... It almost turned into a kung fu movie at that point where the main protagonist, the one doing all the fighting, is, like, practicing drunken style. Like, that's not exactly what's happening because of what is happening. And like I say, we'll explain it when we get there. But it's like you have this drunken style master moving all crazy and jerkily who's dancing through this police precinct, just fucking everybody up. And I'm like, okay, this just turned into like a kung fu movie. I love it. Like, I'm here for it. Yeah, it combines a lot of genres in seamlessly. Like, they don't, there's no friction between them.
Well, the reviewers would have you believe otherwise. And again, we will get to that at the end to kind of try and track where the public opinion went wrong versus what we liked.
You've heard this from me before, Gorship, but man, the public, like, I can't listen to them. They're wrong about everything.
Let me tell you this: the fact that Roger Ebert was nicer about his review on this movie than a lot of the common folk review is saying a lot. I mean, I don't respect Roger Ebert that much, but his name is synonymous. Their names are synonymous with movie review and criticism. Yeah. For some fucking reason, because if you're a critic, you're a joke, in my opinion. And that's why I don't take this as seriously.
Unless you host a horror movie podcast, and then you're also...
No, if you get your paid profession is to sit there and pick apart a movie that you're not even a fan of the genre.
Yeah, that does seem like a waste of time. It is weird how...
Like, an art critic is a useless job, in my opinion.
I mean... I feel like art critics should limit themselves to genres of art they like.
Exactly.
And film critics as well. If you're a film critic and the only type of films you like are like period pieces or romance or horror even, and someone gives you an action movie to watch, you're not going to like it. You're not going to have a good time. But your opinion also isn't going to matter. Because if I like action movies... nothing you say is going to matter to me because you're coming from a place of a person who doesn't like action movies, which means we aren't going to meet on any level. So why did you watch this movie, Mr. Critic, and sit here for 5 to 10 minutes and tell me how you felt about it? Like, your opinion means nothing. You don't like action movies. There's nothing this action movie could have done, or in our case, a horror movie could have done to make you like it. So why are we even here?
It's funny whenever I type into Google, just asking Google why this was panned so badly, and we'll get there. Yeah. But before we move into that, let's talk about our cast. So, playing our lead, Madison Mitchell, is a woman by the name of Annabelle Wallace.
Maddie.
Sydney Lake, played by Maddie Hasson. Mm-hmm. Detective Kakoa Shaw, played by George Young. A young Madison Mitchell, played by McKenna Grace. Derek Mitchell, played by a guy named Jake Abel. Detective crime scene investigator Winnie, played by Ingrid Bissu, and Gabriel, our monster man, played by Matt Lageman.
Mm.
Yes, this is
I was curious if Gabriel was also played by Maddie or not. By the same
no,
actress.
actually, the stunt double obviously somebody else, but the voice, the scary voice, is played by Matt Lageman.
Mm.
And as usual, the plot synopsis of this movie pulled directly from the International Movie Database.
Hit us with it.
Malignant, 2021. Paralyzed by fear from shocking visions, a woman's torment worsens as she discovers her waking dreams are terrifying realities. Short, simple, sweet, to the
I
point.
read that synopsis and was completely wrong about what kind of movie this thought. I was right in that I was like, oh, this is gonna be one of these movies where like this girl sees death before it happens, and she's got to figure out how to convince people to stop it. And I was like, that's not really Gorship's normal bag.
Yes.
Where is this gonna? And I was honestly, after reading that, I was like, I was not enthused. I was like, those are not my type of movies. The whole like psychic person who's like seen murders and then got to convince the police to where the next things.
And I totally
that's not my bag.
I totally respect that. I totally
and
get
I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah,
yeah, I totally get that. It feels too. If that would have gone that way, I wouldn't have blamed you at all for being like, dude, what the fuck.
Yeah.
But thank God it turned a different corner than what the description gave you in your mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that your initial response was, I think I'm going to hate this, and it turned out to be.
Yes, it was definitely way better than I thought it was going to be based on that synopsis. Because I read it, like the little synopsis was right before I hit play on the movie. It was right there, and I was like, oh, okay. Because this is actually on Netflix right now.
Yep.
So if you haven't watched it yet, stop this and go watch it on Netflix.
So
and,
ironically enough, when we first talked about it, it was available on Hulu.
Yeah.
And then within the month of us,
it left Hulu and went to
Netflix. It just completely, and it's gone from Shudder and Amazon to Hulu exclusively, now to Netflix exclusively. So that movie's just bouncing around left.
Chase it, find it,
and it got added to the James Wan collection on Netflix.
Yeah.
So all of his movies, all the Conjuring, all the Insidious stuff that he's done, it's under this one little collection of all the movies he's done.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive. But yes, the beginning of this movie. Hear me out. I know you love these video games. Mm-hmm. When we open up our credit, like very initial opening scene, and you see that giant sanitarium by the ocean,
the Simon Research Hospital,
did it not give you Arkham Asylum vibes?
Oh my God, Arkham and also
Belle Reve.
Belle Reve, and weirdly like. If one of the buildings in BioShock had like risen out of the ocean and came to the surface.
Yeah.
Because it had that weird deco style, like the architecture. But overall, like, my first note is Simon Research Hospital looks awesome. It's such a cool looking.
It's Simeon.
Is it Simeon?
Yeah, because when Dr. Weaver, which immediately after this, when we go from the opening of the architecture showing, we get a woman named Dr. Weaver recording a video log of a dangerous patient named Gabriel at the Simeon Research Facility.
Ah.
She says Simeon.
Okay, that's what she works there. I'll trust her. I may still keep saying Simon. You'll have to keep correcting me, but
yes, Dr. Weaver has a log going saying that there is a patient named Gabriel who's become too dangerous, and upon saying this, the lights flicker in and out of the room, creating some electrical pulsating that will become a reoccurring theme throughout the movie.
Yep.
Next thing you know,
shit's going down.
All hell is breaking loose down the hallway as Gabriel had gotten loose and made it all the way down to the records room, and he now knows the truth of who he is.
Yeah, I wrote, no time for videos right now, Doctor. People are dying. Dr. Weaver, please put the video camera down. People are dying.
Yeah, literally. Because when she shows up to the room that he is in and they're trying to contain him, there's nurses and security guards.
People are flying out the doors, cartoon style.
The one officer, security officer that's there that they're trying to reach into the room with to tranquilize him, he snaps the officer's arm. He's just bleeding everywhere. And it's gross. This is a gory affair.
You get weirdly the first of 2 times where you get an arm broken with bone, where you can see the bone sticking out. They liked that effect so much. They do it again later, and both times
it
is
bone
a little
snapping. Yeah, bone snapping in general is a recurring theme.
It's a little queasy, little stomach turning.
And so once the security guard drops the tranquilizer gun, Dr. Weaver's like, all right, 80s action star style, I'm going to swoop in, grab this gun, pew!
And she does, like
knocks
a
him
champ.
out.
Like a champ.
Yeah, shoots him with the tranquilizer dart, and you just see the legs of what looks to be a child.
Yeah.
A child on the ground.
Which is odd.
Wearing, the rubber grippy socks.
odd.
You're like, damn, a child was that strong?
Yeah.
Is it the Antichrist? You don't know what it is right now.
Well, one of I don't remember if it was a doctor or the security officer, because people keep running up to her and saying different things. But one of them runs up to Dr. Weaver and says he's gotten a hold of the electricity. It's like he's draining the power out of the room. So at that point, I was like, oh, it's a child, but all this stuff's happening with, like, psychic abilities.
It made you think of, like, a mutant, some type of, like...
Yeah, I was thinking some Professor X, like, breaking arms with just your
electrokinesis.
mind. Yeah.
And this is so funny because I immediately thought that same thing, too. It was like, oh, he's got electrokinesis. He's got, like, telekinetic powers over electricity.
This dude can break arms with his mind.
This is like X-Men 101, dude.
Yeah.
So you know what?
Dude's breaking arms with his mind. I'm here for it.
Oh, that voice. That voice that comes through the static is so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
It is so
And
disgusting.
this is obviously the first time that Gabriel's done this, because, like, the doctor that's next to her is like, yeah, she says he can speak, and he's like, he's projecting his thoughts onto the radio. So they're both, like, very surprised, because this is not a thing that this little baby monster thing has been able to do before. And Dr. Weaver's like, okay, now I've seen into its mind. I thought we could cure this dude. We cannot. Time to cut the cancer out.
Cue the synthwave rock music.
I did that song.
They queued up this really Stranger Things like heavy dark synthwave rock music.
It reminds me of The Faint.
As they start strapping this child,
I
gotta emphasize, child, into a chair.
Well, they're strapping it into a chair, but it's behind some frosted glass, so you don't get a good image of the child, but you do see it's not a normal looking child.
Yeah, it's something deformed and normal.
My thought was like, oh, Gabriel's a space alien, because it had the weird head.
Yeah.
That made me think
I
Gray
thought it was
Man.
like Pumpkinhead. I thought it was Pumpkinhead.
I was like, oh, it's a Gray Man. Okay, it's a Gray Man with psychic powers. All right, I'm with you so far.
Yeah, I thought it was something like Pumpkinhead.
And again, I was wrong about all of this.
And very cheesily, as the music is picking up on the synthwave rock, and the doctors are strapping in the patient, Dr. Weaver, so cheesily, pans into the camera and says, it's time to cut out the cancer.
Yeah.
Cue bone saw. And then it fades away.
And we get our credits, and we get, like, files and pictures from the Simeon Research Hospital, like, just coming by really quick. Not enough time for you to read things, but you see things like causes hallucinations, electrical pulses, like little bits that you assume this is like Gabriel's file that's flipping across here.
Telekinesis, question mark.
Yeah.
Hostile and violent urges.
Yeah. And then pictures of, like, seemingly many different children. Just a bunch of... It's a chaos of images.
It's like watching a baby grow up.
While you're getting the opening credits. Yeah, but via hospital files. Yeah. And then we cut to Madison, our star.
We have
coming into
a very pregnant woman getting out of a car.
Yeah, she's groaning. It's working on her.
Yeah, she's clearly just got off work. She was a working pregnant mom doing her thing, and it leads you to believe, just from the initial thought, maybe she's a single mom doing this by herself.
Yeah.
Inside, and no, she's unfortunately in the product of
it's worse than that. She's
an abusive
relationship.
marriage. In an abusive marriage.
She's in an abusive marriage. She is. First of all, I want to say a little something about this house. It is just, I can't figure out what's strange about it, but it's a weird looking house. Every time I see it, number one, it's got the TARDIS thing where it's way bigger on the inside than it appears on the outside. But there's something else about it.
The layout seems very...
Every time I see the house from the outside...
Shapeshifty?
Yeah, every time I see the house from the outside, it makes me think of like a mimic. Like something pretending to be a house that's not a house.
It's nearly Uncanny Valley.
And spoiler, that had nothing to do with the movie. It's just a house. But
it's just your assessment of what you saw and how
it's just a weird looking fucking house. I don't know, like, whoever went out and found this location, like, my hat's off to you, because I got creepy vibes as soon as she starts walking towards the house.
That, or like what happened with the horror movie, the horror short that I was part of, we filmed at two separate houses, so it looks completely
the outside and inside different.
Outside of the house was completely different than what
I feel like that's probably what happened here, because they have the camera overhead shot later. It's a great shot, but I don't think you could film it in an actual house.
No, it was definitely a set.
Yeah, definitely a different inside than outside. But yeah, she goes in and she walks up the stairs, and my heart goes out to her. I'm like, oh, lady, you're pregnant and you got a bad back. You need a house without stairs.
Yeah.
She gets upstairs and she stops at a nursery and she looks in and has this wistful look. And once again, I got it wrong. My first thought was like, oh, her significant other painted the nursery while she was out and she's all happy about it. She's like, oh, he finished the nursery. I was getting, oh, he finished the nursery while I was at work vibes. And maybe he did, but I get no vibes of that off the guy because next she walks into the bedroom where he is, loudly listening to a UFC fight, does not even turn it down to talk to her. He's yelling over it.
Yeah.
Which, warning sign A, that this guy's probably a douche.
Yeah, and then...
this is Derek, the husband of Maddie Madison.
Rightfully so, she starts asking him about, job searches and, what's going to take care of the baby.
And he's like, oh, I thought you were working late. And she's like, oh, well, the baby was giving me a hard time today. Like, he's just fucking flailing around in there. And yeah, and she comes out and she turns off the TV to talk to him about finding a job.
She wants to have a serious conversation.
And he just immediately is like... He
accuses her of her saying that he's not able to take care of their child and that they had recent miscarriages because of him.
Derek says, and I quote, "How many of my kids do I need to watch die inside of you?" Now, that is... Oh, what's the opposite of supportive? Oh, manipulative, gaslighting bullshit.
She brings up the fact that he did hit her before every time that they lost a child.
Yeah.
And so he does not like that because he's like, so what, you're saying it's my fault? He grabs the woman, starts choking her out, and, when she tries to get away from him, he smashes her skull into the fucking wall.
Yeah.
And this is not a just I pushed you thing. This is I grabbed your fucking throat.
There is a blood blob on the wall.
And the drywall just completely dented inward.
Yeah.
Like, she got rocked hard.
And he immediately goes into defense mode.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Let me get you some water. He immediately leaves and goes to get water. And she very wisely locks the door.
Yeah. Kicks his ass to the couch for the rest of the night.
Well, I was worried because later when it shows her sleeping, I'm like, oh, please don't show him sleeping next to her. Please don't say she let him back in.
No, thank God.
Yeah, thank God. No, you head injury means you have to sleep on the couch, man. And sure enough, she's asleep, and he's downstairs asleep on the couch.
And then we start getting the cool little spooky, haunted electromagnetic effect thing going on where lights start flickering.
The blender turns on with nothing in it, and he goes in and turns it off.
And the TV cuts on.
And he's like, Maddie? And the TV... Well, before TV, the fridge door opens.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And he shuts the fridge door, and then the TV cuts on. And the whole time you're getting this little, blinkies. The lights are kind of on, off, to let you know some supernatural shit's happening.
And then you see a shadowed person, which looks like, Maddie from behind in the dark.
very much like Madison sitting there. And,
watching the static of the TV and flipping it without a control.
Yeah.
Just click, 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 click.
And when he flips the light on, gone.
Yeah. Spooky. That's a paranormal haunting.
I wrote that was a great scene. Yeah. Especially, the best part was that you see the cushions re-inflating. When someone stands up off a cushion, they take their weight off it and it returns to its original shape. You're watching the cushion return to its original shape. So
someone was just there.
Well, whatever it is, a lot of time in supernatural films, you gotta figure out the rules. And one of the rules is, whatever this thing is, spirit or whatever, it has physical weight. It's got weight to it. And sure enough, he goes over to, and there's nobody there. There's nothing there.
He goes to turn back around to go up the stairs, and next thing you know, this shadow just comes down from the ceiling, basically.
Yeah, upside down from the ceiling, and it looks like jabbed something in the side of his head.
Yeah, it looks like it just took a fucking sharp, pointy hand and jabbed it in the side of his head. We come to find out that is not what actually happens.
Yeah.
Much worse than that.
Yeah.
But Madison winds up waking up. She hears some noise going on. And she comes down to check out...
Well, first of all, she takes her head off the pillow. And the pillow's covered in blood. And I'm like, how much blood appears on your pillow when you wake up in the morning before you go see a doctor? The answer is different over whether you're trying to cover up from your dirtbag husband hitting you or whether you're not. Because in my case, any blood on my pillow, I'd probably go see a doctor because that's bad. But no, sure enough, she just goes down calling for Derek.
Checking to see what that noise was, and when she gets to the bottom of the stairs, she finds her husband dead with his neck completely snapped around, Exorcist style.
Yeah, turned all
and at an angle. The bone is almost protruding out of the skin. Almost.
Yeah, almost. And then, from like behind the body, a shadow like starts to peek around said body.
Dude, when the shadow does that, I was like, it went full Grudge mode.
Yeah.
Like the way that the fucking thing in the Grudge will always like, and just automatically start popping.
Moving the same too. Yeah. And when she tears ass out of there, which is so credit smart. Where it's due. Yeah. So she doesn't. She's not frozen in fear.
Final girl shit. Yeah. Final girl vibe.
Yeah. She immediately takes off.
And it's so funny because, like, all right, when you see this creature moving, I don't know if you caught it, but it has very spider-like, kind of like the way that it moves.
Absolutely.
A very spider-like tendency. When it crawled over Derek's body and started going up the stairs after, I was like, oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh shit!
It's got a very unique form of locomotion. Even more so when you get more shots of it later. But yeah, the way it moves is something else. Like, so good.
She breaks into a sprint. She goes and hides in the nursery and she slams the door. And she's yelling at whatever it is to go away, whoever it is, go away.
Yeah.
And it bangs on the door. And next thing you know, boom, smashes the door open on her.
Yeah.
And we cut away.
She flies and lands and hits her head, and I'm like...
On her belly. She lands and hits her head and her belly.
And I'm like, this girl's going to have concussions and miscarriages. None of this is good.
Yeah.
And then the next scene... It's got to be of every policeman. This place takes place in Seattle, Washington. This has got to be every policeman in Seattle. Like, the whole street is lined with cars.
It did seem a bit excessive.
A white woman's been hurt. Calling every cop in the world. Like, there were 30 cops on this road if there was one. It was amazing. I'd never seen that many cops. And unfortunately... Well, we get introduced to Detective Shaw
and Detective Regina.
And this little cute police officer
Winnie.
that has Winnie, who has a crush on Detective
Winnie.
Shaw, which is just very cute.
And
like,
it's very funny.
She's a cutie. And they're talking about how insane it is that this dude's head's all the way backwards because... I've seen it in Wendy's exact words were, I've seen it in car wrecks. I've never seen it like this.
Yeah, she sure says, like, usually you only find injuries this bad with the force you usually see in car accidents.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what?
And then they see it and they're like, oh
shit.
Okay,
yeah, it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
It is pretty bad. Yeah. And so we finally find Madison now waking up in the hospital with who we find out is her sister, Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney's been sitting at her bedside and delivers the very bad news that she's lost both her husband and the baby in one fell swoop.
Even more so,
bad day.
Her baby girl.
Yeah.
Madison knew the sex. She knew... Oof. I feel... I can't speak for this, but I do feel like if you lose a child and you know what you were expecting versus going into it...
It's probably a little worse.
It's even harder, I believe, because you had this whole concocted idea of their identity in your head.
You've added more pieces to the puzzle to make it a real person in your mind. Yeah. But yeah, Detective Shaw comes in to check on her. Well, this is a couple days later. We skip to a few days later. And Madison...
Actually, I wanted to point out before we get there...
Sure.
After Madison gets the news, we cut to Kakoa and Regina in the morgue, examining the body of Derek.
Mm-hmm.
And Regina points out that she is automatically accusing Madison of being a part of this.
Even though the handprints are upside down and the force is car wreck strength.
She got word from the neighbors.
Cops.
Regina says, well... I mean, she got word from the neighbors of the bad abusive marriage. She said, quote, no forced entry, an abusive husband, motive. Yeah. That's all she needs. She looks at Coach, she's like, this is our person.
You're lazy. That's lazy cop work. Upside down handprints, head turned all the way around from that little old lady? Come on.
And it's like, unless she...
she turns out to be right, but still, like, come on, that's lazy.
She's half right.
She's half right. Almost right down the middle, half right.
Yeah, she's bisexually right.
She's bisexually right.
But, I mean, the whole hands upside down thing, it was like, unless it was Spider-Man breaking his neck, which,
there's a suspect. Like, that guy, where's he been?
Black suit Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
that
known
guy was shady.
Venom suit Spider-Man definitely knows how to, hurt some people, kill some people. Just saying.
Yeah, we cut back to the hospital a few days later. Madison has been catatonic hasn't said anything in the last few days. Detective Shaw comes to see her, and he meets Sydney for the first time, and you get a little spark between Sydney and Mr. Shaw, where he lets it. Well, he doesn't let it slip. He assumed she knew that Madison's had 3 miscarriages in the last 2 years. And Sydney's like, well, Derek actually didn't let me see Madison, so I didn't know about any of this.
Which doesn't help her case in being a suspect, especially when Regina's like, motive? That sounds like even more motive.
Yeah, exactly.
So it does paint a bad picture for her right off the bat that is like, your husband said you were in an abusive marriage.
And it's also abusive 101. You isolate the person you're abusing from the people that care about them, because the people that care about them would tell them not to put up with your bullshit. So you get rid of those people. There's
something very sad and somber, though, about the post-hospital trip when she goes back home and she insists on staying at that big empty house by herself. It's like, no, Sydney, you don't have to stay here. Like, I'll be fine. I need to go. This is my home.
Yeah, I'm not going to let him being the killer that killed Derek take my house from me. He took my child. He took my husband.
She has a pretty strong resolve.
He's not taking my house.
She has a pretty strong resolve that I believe she built up from these miscarriages. I believe all the pain from the miscarriages did help build her into a little bit stronger person resolve, because she didn't so quickly just give up and be broken.
Yeah.
She did. It was also very sad seeing her walk around upstairs, look at the nursery, and just kind of half break down. She saw it and she had to walk away before she actually broke down into tears.
Yeah, of course.
And so that was a nice little. Some people would call it unnecessary shot.
No,
I thought it gave a good character.
Yeah, very important, I think.
It shows what kind of person she is.
Yeah. She gets a little light scare with the little lights doing their little blinky, staticky thing.
That's the first thing you want to see when you come out of a shower after you've had a long, hard stay at a hospital. You're at your home by yourself, all of a sudden all your lights are flickering, and you look across the street and there's a shadow man just watching you from your window.
And you're like, I need to go check and make sure I locked the door. And I'm like, lady, you had a dude break in and kill your husband. You better have locked the door. And at first I was mad because it turned out that the downstairs door was not locked. And the back door was also not locked. But then I got over it because she went down and locked the back door, took 4 steps away, and it was open again. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, she might have locked the doors, and this entity unlocked them.
And then when she turned around to go back to the front of the house was open. Yeah. Wide open.
So at first I was like, okay, it is unbelievable that this lady, after getting home invaded, did not start locking her doors. But then I was like, okay, the thing is unlocking the doors. That's okay then.
The visual...
And then we get that overhead view.
Yes, the visual of her running from room to room was... I loved it. I loved it so much because...
It was such a cool shot.
I'm always a big fan of
It's a full overhead shot of her running, living room to kitchen, up the stairs, into the bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was like securing everything, closing curtains, shutting windows, making sure the doors are locked. But the thing that helped drive it even more was the musical score. It very much gave that intense, almost like... Rosemary Baby violin music that, there's a panic in the discord of it, in the tones that you hear. And I loved it because that overhead shot also reminded me of one of my favorite scenes from The Collector, where they're playing cat and mouse, and you see, as the guy's getting away, the Collector is almost on his,
I love that view, and it makes me think of the old Clue game when you're looking at it from overhead.
It does have a very board game
like Mr. Green in the conservatory with the candlestick. Like, you get those vibes.
Subconsciously why I like it. Clue's one of my favorite games.
Oh, it's such a fun...
Yeah, Clue's one of my favorite detective
such a fun, silly game. It makes me very happy.
But I love that this actually... Nothing happened.
No.
She just
cut to the next day.
Yeah, she got scared, but I love the fucking panic that it induced just for that quick second. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, okay, false alarm. They wanted you to have that little bit of false security.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everything picks up after this.
And the next day, she starts doing some handiwork, starts installing deadbolts on all the locks and windows, making sure the house is pretty inescapable.
Once again, we get the badass 80s synth rock music to cater to her, home improvement
I felt
scenes.
bad. I was like, oh, so much handiwork, all for naught, because this is not going to work. Otherwise, the movie would end at this point. Like, wouldn't it be funny if she installed all these deadlocks and that was the end of the movie? It's like, oh, he couldn't get in after that. The end.
Now, this next part, this is one of those things I was talking about at the intro of the podcast, where going back and watching this on a second time, it makes so much more sense. So, after she installs all of her locks, and, we get done with our little synth break, we have Madison just staring at the cracked wall where her head was smashed, and it's
smashed.
the last thing Derek ever did to her before he died.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition here. You see Madison, and you see her shadow standing in the spot where the crack is.
Yeah.
That is such a
good scene that you don't get till
visual representation. Now that I've seen it, I love it. I love it. It's so poetic in the way that it was filmed. And I was like, this was whoever did this one particular scene. I appreciate the fuck out of that art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what that was. That was fucking art and storytelling.
It's such there's so much meaning there.
There's so many little Easter eggs, dude. So many little Easter eggs, and I fucking love it.
And she is interrupted in her revelry by Sydney knocking on the window because, again, deadlock. She can't get in downstairs, and she's like, "Yeah, my key doesn't work anymore." And it's a very funny bit because Madison's like, "Yeah, I installed deadbolts," and Sydney's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, of course you did. Like, it was a cute little scene where, like, yeah, that is the logical conclusion after a home invasion. You beef up security to feel more secure.
I love this next part as well when she's trying to comfort her sister. She's like, I know you're upset that Derek died, but, and seriously, nobody deserves to die that way, but fuck him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, she's not wrong. I agree with that sentiment.
She's not wrong, but I don't think it was the time. Like... When Madison's in this weird mourny state, like, you can't try and pull her out and be like, oh, he wasn't worth your tears, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not going to get you anywhere. Better to just be like, here's Mom's casserole. Let me know if you need anything.
Now, while they're having this conversation, they start discussing about the reason why she stayed so long with Derek. And this whole dialogue breakdown that I'm about to go through is another foreshadowing for what comes in the future. Yeah. So, as they're discussing, Madison basically explains that she had thought about leaving him multiple times, but by the time that she finally got the courage to do it, she found out she was pregnant. And she thought maybe if she had been able to keep the pregnancies, she would not have pissed him off as much. But at the same time, she also wanted to keep the pregnancies because she wanted to know, quote, what it felt like to have a biological connection to something for once. And her sister's confused. She doesn't understand. Madison reveals her as like, I'm adopted, Sydney.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know what it means to have a biological connection to something.
And at that point, anybody who's watched horror movies before gets an immediate connection back to the research hospital scene from the beginning. They're like, oh, okay, how is this connected to the Gabriel person from the beginning? Because there's got to be a connection to the Gabriel person from the beginning. They didn't just show us that scene for nothing. But at this point, I was flabbergasted. I was like, I have no idea. Is there a sex change involved? I don't know. Let's keep watching. But that's the first inkling you get that Madison's past is mysterious. She straight up says, I can't remember anything before I was 8 years old. And you're like, okay, mysterious past, also mysterious hospital with a mysterious dude named Gabriel. This has all got to be connected.
Who has
somehow.
Mysterious telekinetic powers.
Yeah, and also the lights in her house are acting weird just like that, the hospital lights. So there's connection here, but I couldn't get the pieces to fit at this point. I was intrigued.
After she reveals that and Sydney kind of just soaking it in, I will say this one little part took me out of it, and it was just because the tone of the music they chose to like catch a reaction and then them pan out the window to the cityscape to transition to the next scene. It just I felt like it was the wrong choice of score for that one little segment. I mean, shit, you probably didn't even need music. You could have done something very lighthearted, but something about that synth being brought
didn't
back.
work for
it
you.
just didn't make any sense.
Fair enough.
Like it's funnier when
I don't remember it, so I probably didn't find it offensive.
I remember it more on the second time around because I was paying attention to all the music and then like the tone shift changes and shit. And so after we pan away from the bedroom to the city, we are now going below ground to a tour of the Seattle Underground.
Yes. There is... And I was recently in New York City, and it's just something I realized while I was there, because the New York City Transportation Museum is in an old abandoned subway tunnel. And they've got subway cars set up from like all the different eras that the subway was running, complete with advertisements from like that time period. If you're ever in New York City, it's worth a visit. But I was thinking about that while watching this, and I was like, it is kind of spooky that every city in the world is built on the bones of another city underneath it. Yeah, like there's another city underneath every city in the world, and shit, there could be anything down there.
Think about locally around Lake Norman. That is
even around here,
a whole flooded town underneath there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was thinking of that, and the next thought I had was, wait, is Dr. Weaver a tour guide now? Because this lady was a tour guide.
No, this is just a Jane Doe. This is a random woman being introduced.
She had similar hair to Dr. Weaver, and you don't get a good shot of her at first. And I'd already forgotten what Dr. Weaver looked like. So my immediately thought was like, is this Dr. Weaver? Turns out, yes. It turns out it is not. But it is a lady giving a tour of the underground.
It's funny because when she's talking to the groups of people about all the creepy shit that happens down there, the lights start flickering. But she was the one who did it.
Yeah.
She was the one who did it. She was like, got you guys. All right, that's the end of our tour. Have a good one.
Yeah.
And as she's getting ready to wrap up her day, all of a sudden, she has the most typical horror movie trope happens to her. She's ending her job shift. Yep. She's alone in the dark by herself. Yeah. And you hear spooky noises like rattling around down at the end of the darkened hallway. That is so generic, it almost hurts. Yeah. But it works.
No, absolutely.
Given the setting.
There's a reason they keep using it. Yeah, because it works.
it works.
Yeah.
And I like how she starts getting closer and closer. Even when she keeps hearing something rattle, she doesn't stop until it growls at her. Then she's like, okay, now I run away.
Lights.
Yeah.
And she doesn't just run out of the place, which is her mistake. She runs to get the lights plugged back in to see what it is. And I'm like, you are too brave for your own good, lady.
Yeah, and I love how when she turns around, there's nothing there.
Of course not.
Except for when she looks up. Holy shit, what the fuck is that thing?
So this is the second bit of proof we have from the upside-down handprints on the first body that this thing likes the ceilings and the sky. Like, it can crawl across the roofs and come from above. In fact, that seems to be its favorite place to come from.
We don't get the full face reveal, but this initial, I want your opinion. What did you think when you first saw this little bit of the face of this creature thing that dropped down on Jane Doe?
I did not get enough to, like, first of all, at that point I was like, okay, this is like a physical being. Like, it had so much weight that I was like, all right, this is not a spirit, this is not a psychic force. This is an actual figure.
Did you think it was some type of creature?
Yeah. Well, no, I thought it was a disfigured human at that juncture. Because of the weight. I was like... And the research hospital thing. I was like, okay, this has got to be Gabriel. How did he get out? They said they were going to cut the cancer. I assumed that may kill him. So at this point, I was like, that's Gabriel. What's his fucking deal?
The first time I ever watched this movie, I thought two things. First, I thought that Gabriel was a child they experimented on, that they created, and that's why we got to cover up our creation.
Right.
It's an abomination we made.
Yeah.
Second thought was, okay, what if he's a kid who was born with like some tumors that gave him, these mutant powers? Yeah. And that's what they meant, taking the tumor out, cutting out the cancer would get rid of his magical... That's what I thought, initially.
Yeah.
Both instances wrong.
Yeah.
But, given the first time I'd seen it and making it this far in the movie, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And then, you realize that Gabriel has...
Kidnapped Jane Doe.
Has kidnapped, not murdered Jane Doe. And then it's like, oh, first Dr. Weaver, takes the phone, and I'm like... So are you going to call Dr. Weaver and tell her you've got a prisoner to lure Dr. Weaver out? I was all over the place. I had no idea what was going on. It said
it was just a call and taunt her.
It was a taunt.
It was letting her know, it was like, Dr. Weaver.
Time to cut the cancer out.
Who is this? It's like, your actions have consequences. And then, hangs up. Jane Doe is just looking in horror as this thing crawled up the wall to grab her phone out of her pocket.
Yeah.
Again, very spider-like tendencies.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny, too. She's so now we get Dr. Weaver.
Oh, hold on. Let's not forget. We get to watch the creature dress up. After it kidnaps Jane Doe, she wakes up to seeing it rummage through all these clothes and shit in this
an old
workshop.
Jacket
It looks like it's some workshop. There's a fan. There's industrial beams and stuff. and it's just like puts on a black cloak, puts on these black gloves, and has its slipknot hanging hair down in front of its face, and then crawls up to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much in her face. So she sees it clearly. We don't quite see it, but
I was like, oh, the costume is very important to this thing.
Gotta have my
identity.
Villain disguise.
Yeah, my villain disguise. Then we cut to Madison, who, let me just say, does laundry barefoot, and I do not support this. Like, I see her walking through the house in her bare feet, and I'm like, you gotta wear socks, man. On hardwood floors, you're tracking dirt everywhere. You're feeling like yucky dirt on your feet. I don't know. I was like, bro, Madison, cut that shit out.
When she gets down the stairs, this part, I mean, I genuinely, it gave me a nice little jump scare because you didn't expect it. She's coming down the stairs with her fucking laundry, and all of a sudden a child, like a ghost child, runs by the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
And she, instead of turning tail, she keeps walking down the fucking stairs.
Yeah.
She's just like, what the fuck was that?
Well, I got, because the night before, when she's in her bedroom and she's got the door shut, she's whispering over and over, it's all in your head, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. And then it cuts to day. So the implication being that, like, either she said it's all in your head all night, or she calmed herself down. So I think when she saw the child, she was bravely walking on to kind of do, it's all in my head, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to go to where that child would be, and look, the child's not there. See? All in my head, as I promised. Yeah. And I think she was psyching herself up.
Okay.
After last night's performance, she got scared by the light. She's trying to put on a braver face.
Immediately after that, it gets undone because as she's getting ready to do laundry, the lights start flickering. And now this time, her head starts fucking hurting.
Yeah.
And she starts having a real bad migraine while the lights are flickering and pulsating and making that electric whirling noise. But she also notices, oh shit, my head's bleeding.
My head's bleeding again.
It's bleeding even more from the thumping in my head.
Yeah.
And so she's looking around and all of a sudden, jump scare.
Yeah.
Dr. Weaver's face appears in the washer machine's reflection.
Yeah.
And
what are you doing in my house?
And she's like, what? What are you talking about?
And she's like, this is my house. And I'm like,
okay.
Okay, so now we're having a fight over whose house it is. And at this point, I was like, I have no idea. But then the world around her melts.
In very not Inception, but Shutter Island style.
Yeah.
Very much, the world melts around and it reveals she's in a waking nightmare. And she's watching.
Yeah, as it reforms, she's in Dr. Weaver's house, and she can see Dr. Weaver
is being attacked by Gabriel.
Yeah, by this cloaked figure who is in fact Gabriel. And she has to just bear witness to this chase scene and this murder, and this procuring of a weapon.
Yeah, well, originally whenever he called her on the phone, they showed her living room with all her cases of trophies and awards from over the years, along with all of her books of studies of patient files she kept over the years, which I thought, shouldn't that be illegal? I thought you weren't supposed to retain those after you retired.
Yeah.
Like you're not an active doctor. You kept all those files of patients from, like, babies all the way through childhood.
Yeah, maybe if it's your private practice, they're your files. I have no idea.
Hey, but she had a lot of secrets to hide.
And she was old, so
she had a lot of secrets to hide.
This might have been before HIPAA. Yeah. So she was hiding those.
But
for some reason,
Gabriel manages to grab one of those trophies and bludgeon her skull in.
Yeah, there's one for her, like, which ironically is a surgery of her. It's a best surgeon trophy.
And it's got this cool little spear that's encompassed by a snake coiling around it with, like, some angel wings.
Whatever that symbol's called, with the blade and the snakes coiling around it. That
I forget.
Represents hospitals. Yeah. And basically she is bludgeoned to death with her trophy.
Yeah.
There's a bit of irony there on multiple levels. Once again, the fact that it is a surgery trophy will come into play later. It will mean more as we go on.
And in this scene when he is bludgeoning and killing her, it also establishes more that Gabriel is extremely strong. Like, ridiculously, mutantly strong.
He one-arm tosses her.
Yeah.
Across
the room into the kitchen drawers. And then on top of that, they reemphasize that he is telekinetic, or, electrokinetic, with his telepathy through the radio waves. Because that's how he's talking to the doctor.
Yeah.
He's not actually speaking from his mouth, his deformed ass mouth. He's just projecting.
No lungs, no way to get air out.
Yeah, he's just projecting his thoughts into the radio waves. She's like, oh my God. Like, she can hear him.
Yeah.
And it's a very sinister voice.
And he says something like, you wanted to cut the cancer out, this is what the cancer becomes, or see what the cancer becomes.
A monster.
A monster. And then
very cheesy dialogue.
Yeah, but I'm here for it. Like, I don't know, I'm a sucker for cheesy dialogue. I've always liked it. But at this point, I was like, oh, can Gabriel see Madison? Can Madison see Gabriel? So that was an unanswered question I had at that juncture. I was like, during these psychic breaks where Madison is safely tucked away in her house, witnessing seeing this murder, can they see or interact with each other? That was the question going through my mind. Once again, turns out I was wrong about a lot of things at this juncture, but that's what I wanted.
The gore splatter in this was very awesome. It was CGI blood.
And it's also interesting because you don't see, like, it's happening behind a desk. So you're just seeing the trophy go up and down and up and down, and blood's like flying out from behind the desk. Yeah, it was choice. I was here for it.
Investigating her house.
Yeah, they just show up and nothing comes of it because they're like, yeah, you're telling us things we already know because we found the body. And it was on the news this morning, so you aren't proving anything to us.
But when they were at her house, when they're at Dr. Eber's house, they find the trophy is actually now split in two, and they're missing the top half of it. Yeah. Which will become Gabriel's weapon of choice eventually.
Yeah. Which is fun.
The CSI girl named Winnie is clearly crushing on Kakoa Shaw.
So hard.
He is so oblivious. I don't
think he's oblivious. I think he knows and is not interested.
I'm going to say the exchange.
Yeah.
The exchange they had when he's like, we need to find that missing half. She says, yeah, don't we all? And she just kind of looks at him. He's just like, turns away.
Yeah. That seemed like a purposeful, like, I'm not going to engage with this. Because here's the thing. Earlier, his partner, what's Shaw's partner's name?
Regina.
Yeah. Is like, oh, here comes the love lost. Or she said something smartass about this crush. And Shaw heard her and rolled his eyes.
I overlooked that, yeah.
Yeah, and so Shaw knows. Shaw is purposely not engaging in this because Sidney's more his type. He likes the actresses. And he's a good-looking guy, so, you know.
But at least she does her job because while they're there on the site, she finds a picture of a young girl in the corner of the room. Mm-hmm. Very young, almost looks like Samara from The Ring kind of girl.
Yeah, and Shaw gets one of his partners to age that up so we could see what this lady looks like as an adult, which is important.
And we find out that Dr. Weber specialized in specifically child reconstructive surgery.
Yeah, making childs with like birth defects and stuff look quote unquote normal.
I also really liked this next part. This is just a real fun like editorial thing. I love in movies when they do a call and response shot. Mm-hmm. So this movie had a couple of call response shots, but this one specifically, when the cop asks, "Did we find the rest of that murder weapon?" It immediately cuts to Gabriel working on the weapon and
sharpening
shaping it,
making it even more dangerous.
Yeah, he breaks the snakes off of it from being coiled around, and then he starts sharpening the blade, starts shoveling it down on the wing side so he can grip it properly without. And I was like, I love that. It's just a very simple thing. You ask a question, and then the viewer gets the answer immediately. I love the call and response shots.
Yeah, I'm kind of a fan of those too. And once it's sharpened, Gabriel actually throws it at Jane Doe, and it lands right next to her head.
Just because she was trying to wiggle free.
Yeah, it's like, don't even think about it. No escape. No, let me be clear.
and I was like, damn, she's still alive. She's still just hanging up there.
Yeah. To what purpose? At this point, I could not imagine what Gabriel would want with just some Joe Schmo. We'll find out she's no Joe Schmo. She's important. But we'll get there in a bit. So is this where we're getting to our second victim, our old man, yeah?
Yeah, Madison winds up telling Sydney, though, about what her experience is in. Surprisingly, sister immediately on board.
Well, sister's like, ooh, I think it's psychic. I think you have a psychic connection.
She immediately doesn't
she's
question
very,
it.
like, crystals and earth magic, kind of. Because she falls into this, like, quickly. She's like, yeah, I not only believe you, like, I think we need to tell the cops.
I also love the next murder sequence just because of, like, red lighting. I'm a good sucker for a red lighting horror movie sequence.
You don't have to put on the red light.
Oh, Roxanne, you're gonna get it. But I love this next little segment just because it's very quick, but still very creepy and very effective.
That poor old doctor gets himself a trophy too.
Yeah, Dr. Victor I forgot his name, Steele or something.
Yeah, there's just a scene of him. First of all, he's on the phone, and he's talking about Dr. Weaver.
Another colleague from the past.
Yeah, well, he's like, oh, I heard what happened to Dr. Weaver.
Who would want to do something like that to her?
Yeah, she was so nice. She did all these things with people.
Except for the time of the Simian group.
And he's like, don't mention the Simian group. And then you get static, and the phone cuts out on him. And at this point, I'm like, dude, you know that at one time you dealt with a dude that had electrical powers like this.
But it's been like 30 years, so you just put it out of his brain.
Dude, it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened in your life. I feel like you'd still remember it.
I also thought it was weird that he didn't question the fact that his once closed window was wide open.
And there was drips going into the closet.
Yeah, just didn't think nothing of it. He's just like, I'm going to get a towel and start wiping it up.
Between those two things, you get the idea that he's kind of scatterbrained and doesn't worry. He doesn't sweat the details much. He shuts out his light, and we kind of get like, oh, are we done here? That's weird. But of course we're not. We've got to go get this from Madison's point of view. Who is asleep in bed.
Yeah, that's so cool. She's laying there, and she's just in her normal room. All of a sudden she rolls over, and she's got red lighting on her face.
Yep.
Bro, what a terrible sleep paralysis dream to fucking have, because she was locked in place.
She was. Opens her eyes, and there's the old man asleep.
Which is terrifying in its own way.
And she screams. He, of course, doesn't wake up because they can't hear her.
And they add the little audio effect that makes it very muffled.
Yeah.
Like how you feel when you're screaming in a night terror.
And it's so much worse because Gabriel has to crawl over Madison to get to Gabriel,
that
to his
spider-like crawl he does, crawling up over her, and then the way he just straddles on top of the top of the doctor,
and just
arches his hand back in a very creaky,
with
crooked,
the trophy,
and stab,
yeah,
directly to the face, just multiple times. Like this doctor never stood a single chance.
Yeah,
it was violent, gory. And Madison finally just wakes up and screams, and her sister comes running to the rescue, and she's like, "We gotta! I just watched another person die. He struck again. He struck again."
So this is the scene where they go. They're at the police station, and this time Shaw and Sydney are really hitting it off, to the point that Shaw's partner's rolling eyes.
Before Madison woke up, though, you saw Gabriel's face again, even more closely as he stared into her face, and he sees this green eye.
I asked again, Gabriel, Madison, can they see each other? Because that looked like eye contact.
Yeah, it looked like he directly looked at her.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I see you, bitch."
Yeah, but you're not sure. Like, it looked like eye contact, but they didn't say anything to each other, and like Madison kicks out of it. And Sydney takes her to the police, and they describe the person, and she's like, "So I'm putting a bolo out on sloths from Goonies."
Yeah. Well, the picture looks more terrifying. She's like, "So this is the artist rendering based off of the description you gave."
Yeah.
She's just looking at it. I'm like, "It looks scary as fuck to me."
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. She gave a really good detail. Like the artist who drew it took her seriously enough to actually draw it like a fucking.
That might have been one of the sketches of when they were trying to decide what this monster was going to look like.
I was like, this guy probably loved comics. He's like, I feel like I'm drawing a comic monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was.
But that was a very good line.
And I was like, I think the humor was needed. Just a little bit of...
just a little turn the pressure down.
This shit's so insane. And of course you're going to have people who are like, this... No, I do not believe you. Actually. This is absolutely bonkers. No, I don't believe you.
Yeah. Madison goes to the bathroom while Sydney keeps flirting with Detective Shaw. And when she's in the bathroom, she gets a phone call. Hey, it's Gabriel. Thank God Gabriel's calling. He never calls. I miss his voice. And he's calling Madison Emily, which is very interesting and strange.
I love this line. He says, Emily, Madison is the name that your fake mother gave you.
Yeah.
Mitchell is the name that your shitty marriage gave you.
Yeah.
You will always be Emily.
And I'm like, listen, Gabriel, I'm not saying my marriage was the best, but don't just come stepping in talking about my life. Like, that ain't for you. So, yeah, Emily comes out of the bathroom and grabs Sydney to get the hell out of that, because she is like, Gabriel knows who I am, and I know his name is Gabriel.
Yeah.
I called it out on the phone. There is a connection there. And I think the cops are going to come to the conclusion that it's me.
When he says the line, "You know who I am, even if they say I'm only in your head." What did you think about that? Did you think telepathy?
Well, then I was like, oh, is this an imaginary friend that's come to life? Did Madison bring him to life
like
with
Fred's
the power
dead?
of her mind? Yeah, like... So my new working theory was that Gabrielle was a figment of Madison's imagination made real by Madison's superpowers that she's apparently had since she was a child. But yeah, I couldn't get any further than that.
That was another thing that threw me off because I was like, wait, what? Wait, is this person exist or is this like just, a byproduct of insanity? But clearly, it even more questions come up right after this.
Yeah.
Well,
as soon as they leave, the dude who was Detective Shaw asked to age up that image, was like, you saw the image, I'm assuming.
It's like, yeah, that's why you brought her in, right?
And he was like, what? And of course, the image is Madison.
Yeah.
So
and he's like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, obviously, both of these doctors worked on Madison at some point. Back when she was Emily, before she was Madison. And Gabriel knows that.
The only person to get answers from is Mama.
Yeah, so we go to visit Mama. Although I will say this, I don't have a lot of nitpicks about this movie, but I do have this one. I hate the scenes in cars where one person's driving and the person on the passenger side says, "Where are we going?" and the driver doesn't answer. And then 20 minutes later, they get to their destination. I'm like, really? What did you guys do for 20 minutes? Just sit in silence while she didn't say where you were going?
Without being ignored?
Yeah, those scenes, frustrate me. I'm like, oh, she could have said home, and that would have been enough. It's super weird for her to be like, where are we going? And her like, eyes on the road, hands at 6 and 12. What are you doing? Fucking tell her where you're going. It's not a secret. She's going to know when you get there. That is for the audience to build suspense, but it makes no sense in the world of the movie.
It's the same thing as when someone's talking on the phone in the TV show.
And they don't say goodbye?
Yeah, they just hang up.
Yeah. Super rude.
Yeah, if you're on the other end of that line, you'd be like, did you just...
Yeah, you'd be mad.
So they get to Mom's house, and immediately...
She recognizes the name Gabriel.
Yeah, as soon as she said Gabriel, she looks like she's seen a fucking ghost.
Yeah.
She says the name Gabriel, and she's like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
And then they start playing home movies from when Madison was a child.
And apparently she had a creepy imaginary friend named Gabriel who did not like her new family.
Yeah, they showed her birthday party, her, what was it, 9th birthday party?
Yeah.
And as she's blowing the candles, Gabriel's saying something fucked up to her, and she's like, no, I won't do that.
Yeah.
Because they don't, no, they do love me. Yeah. And he's controlling, he's obsessive. The
mom and dad are like, look, a lot of the things Gabriel said scared the crap out of us. We were hoping you would grow out of it. And when Sydney was born, you did. You stopped mentioning Gabriel. Gabriel stopped being discussed. So we thought this problem was over.
If we gave you enough love, that would be enough to fix your loneliness.
Yeah. Love and a sister. And weirdly enough, for a long time it was, apparently. And here's a weird thing, though. Meanwhile, we cut back to the Officer Shaw, who is not pursuing the only suspect they have in this case.
He didn't try calling her. He didn't leave. He didn't immediately go out the building because she couldn't have got very far.
Yeah, it's night now. He's not left his desk. He's looking through files, and I'm like, not a good detective, are you?
Yeah, but a good detective in the sense that he peels open some of those folders and finds the hidden compartment with all these flash drives on it.
Yep, and he finds the Dr. John Gregory connection, who is the last doctor connected to these three. There were 3 doctors that worked on Emily.
Yeah.
And he is the last.
2 of 3 are dead, and now we got 1 left.
So Shaw immediately starts running to get to where Gregory lives. Why he doesn't call in 1,000,000 cops, I don't know.
And then we get another smooth transition into the waking nightmare of Madison washing her face, bending down, rinsing her face off, and then when she pops back up in the mirror, oh God, I'm an old man!
Old man John! And then, of course, we do another scene melt. These scene melts are really well done. I'm not giving them enough props here, but like
the dissolving
melts from her location to the location where Gabriel is performing a
one
murder.
bathroom to another bathroom.
Yeah.
And I love how when it dissolves, she's like paralyzed and just standing there watching, and Gabriel pops out from behind her, like he's just been there the whole time, watching her do it.
Yeah, and he starts oozing towards Dr. John Gregory. And then we cut to Shaw's view, POV, and he's charging up the steps, and he gets there, or riding the elevator, however he gets there, and he
ran.
Yeah, he ran
out there, kicks in the door,
and he's like, "You have to answer." It's like when you're playing Marco Polo at the pool. You're like, when I say Marco, you have to say Polo, guys. Like, if you don't, I don't know where it's cheating. And he's like, "Yeah, Dr. John Gregory, it's the police. You need to answer if you're here." And he comes into the bathroom.
Fresh murder scene. Just happened.
Yeah, Gregory is a bloody mess in his bloody bathtub. And then, this is such a good scene. You see Madison right behind him yelling like, "He's still here! Get out!"
And it pans up to Gabriel in that spider crawl position with the weapon in his hand, trying to stab Shaw as he drops down like fucking Spider-Man.
Shaw's a hell of a fighter. Like, he gets the best of Gabriel. Like, they have a tussle. And he ends up putting a couple bullets, like, right by Gabriel's ear.
But the craziest part is when he was a skeptic before, he now believes, because he saw, literally,
he faced it.
Like, Gabriel was over his face trying to stab him in the face.
Yeah, and then you get a better shot of Gabriel's face.
All right,
and it is
pause. What did you think of that monster design? What did you think when you finally get the full reveal of this creepy monster thing, like his face?
Oh, it was a great face. I thought, like, muddy, bloody mummy with, like, hatchet mark mouth. That was the impression I was getting, like, because you only get, like, even though you're getting better shots of it, it's still, like, in a tussle. So, like, the camera's all jumping around. And I was like, oh, is it like a mummy? Like, its face is all gooey and red and bloody, and its mouth is just a little hatchet, and its head is really weirdly shaped, like, very deformed, like, bone features. Like, it's a very creepy, good monster. And man, our poor boy Shaw is not ready for this.
They have a badass chase though.
Yeah,
chase.
Oh, this was a great set piece. He's actually ends up chasing Gabriel through the old abandoned underneath of Seattle, where the tour guide.
Can we talk about Gabriel's escape down the fucking fire escape though? That super monkey parkour he did.
Let's see what I wrote. Such weird locomotion on the fire escape. Very cool is what I wrote. Because it was awesome.
You're just like, whoa, this dude is just. That is unnaturally.
Why are you moving like that? Yeah, it's one of those things, and they do it in a lot of horror movies, and it works for it. It's a thing that almost always works for me. When you have something in a human shape not moving the way humans do, like unnaturally, like it's great.
Bro,
and this whole chase scene is like that.
When they got into the underground tunnel scene where like Kakoa's ducking and trying to like crawl run, like hunch down run,
throwing shots out.
But fucking Gabriel is galloping, like doing this weird spider crawl gallop.
Like doing. Like the way drunk people plow through doors. Yeah. Like Gabriel's like jumping and just busting through wood, and like it's not graceful. It is fast though. Like Gabriel's booking. But like Gabriel's like knocking things over, like smashing through walls. Like it's very funny. And Shaw is chasing at a breakneck speed until he gets to like
this little cavern with all the old horse-drawn carriages. The carriages which they're really cool Victorian era style carriages. I really like that. But did it not seem a little bit like that scene in Arkham City where you're underground and you have to fight those
weird Wonderland
and there's all those carriages and there's a fucking fog, like it's something from Resident Evil. It reminded me so much of like Resident Evil meets Arkham City.
And then and one of the wagons tries to smush Shaw because obviously
Gabriel pushed
it. And then I don't think Shaw knows how wagons work. Because then he's opening up the door and looking inside. I'm like, you can't
It's not a car, dude.
You can't steer it from in there, dude. And meanwhile, you get a cool shot of it. Gabriel, like, on top. Mummy or Dracula style with the knife clutched to his chest, laying on his back. just waiting to roll
pounce
off.
down, rolls off, pounces down, tries once again to stab
one more time
in the face, and just cuts his cheek really good. Gets a nice little cut on his cheek, but did not get it into his face like he wanted to.
Shaw gets another bullet off, and Gabriel bolts. And when I say bolts, shoots to the ceiling and like knocks out like some planks up at the top, and he's gone.
Yeah,
I was like, damn.
Oh, Shaw literally says, "Fuck me,"
which is a fair.
Because now, come on, man! Like he's seen this shit. He's like, well, I gotta let Regina know. Like the description was accurate. I saw it face to fucking face.
Yeah.
And this thing is insanely fast, insanely strong.
Yeah.
And it can crawl up walls like fucking Spider-Man.
And this is so
the hypnotist.
This is the hypnotist, and they're going back to Madison's repressed memories of before when she was 8 and earlier. And oh my god, there's a scene. So Gabrielle is talking to Madison via like this light up like little child's phone.
Yeah, it's a little kid's play phone.
Yeah. And he's telling her, and Madison's like, no, whenever I listen to you, I always get in trouble, da 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 da. And he's like, no, this will be a good surprise. And she's like, oh, a good surprise. Well, that's great. And he's like, yeah, cut your mom a piece of cake. Get your mom some cake. She'll make her feel better. And then, so Madison is like, she's got the huge butcher knife, and she's hovering over the cake. And he's like, yeah, cut it.
She'll love it.
Cut the cake.
Such a sweet treat for the mom.
Yeah, and then we do the weird melty screen thing, and it turns out she is standing over her mother, getting ready to cut into her mother's belly. Gabrielle decidedly did not want a little sister. Sydney was not on the menu, or he was on the menu for dinner. Like, Gabrielle did not want Sydney around, and was straight up going to have Madison murder the mother and child.
But luckily, Madison broke out of the fucking
just
hallucination.
In time. Unfortunately, Mom and Dad wake up and see her hovering over them with the butcher knife. Sydney survives to be born, and apparently from that time on, Gabriel was no longer
it banished him, essentially.
Yeah, he was no longer prominent in her head or life. And thank God for that, because that would not have gone... that just wouldn't have ended well.
So after her terrifying hypnosis encounter, she wakes up.
We cut to her escape.
Jane Doe is finally undoing
free.
her rope ties and breaking free.
Yeah.
And she cuts herself down with a little shib that she winds up finding hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
And as she goes to walk to get away,
like 3 steps and falls through the floor.
Turns out she falls through the attic roof ceiling all the way down to the kitchen floor through a table in Madison's living room.
Where they are all having... Madison's living room is where they're doing the...
hypnosis.
Seance. The hypnosis. and she just like fucking falls in, and like everyone's like, what?
Madison screams bloody murder because she doesn't know what's going on. But immediately the cops are like, you're going to jail.
Yeah, of course. You have, I believe they described it, Hannibal Lecter's playroom in his
Jeffrey
attic.
Dahmer's workshop.
Jeffrey Dahmer's workshop in your attic. So you're... Oh, and you were keeping someone prisoner up there.
The weapon
and the weapon is up there. And the clothes are up there. And Shaw is not convinced because he fought this thing and doesn't look like Madison. But he doesn't push.
He's like, it doesn't look good. He's like, it does not look good.
Yeah, because it's weird. Like, the fight he had points one way, but all the evidence is pointing the other. So
Madison tries to explain to them in the interrogation room what's going on, and Regina very coldly, she's like, "So what? You're trying to tell me your imaginary friend has come to life and is putting this on you?"
Regina, when someone's mentally ill, question them a little nicer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, she was very, very callous about some of those responses.
She really was.
And because they're going back and forth, they're still accusing her. Well, mostly Regina.
Yeah.
Madison has a little freak out moment, and she causes the lights to blow up in the room.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Gabriel starts calling.
Gabriel calls. I love this.
And he starts taunting the cops.
Yeah.
And straight up being like,
why not?
Like, no, I'm doing this for revenge. She tried to get rid of me.
Hey, Madison, what you used to call me?
Tell him.
Tell him what you call me.
Tell him.
She's like, the devil. And then he hangs up. He's like, yeah, that's good shit. Click.
Yeah. Hold on. That right there So funny, but also gave me an indication into where his mindset is like his mental faculties are like the humor of a child almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
and it also lets you know how connected he is to Madison. Like, those two peas in a pod, and in more ways than one we'll discover, but like even that, you're like, wow, he's up inside her somehow. This is crazy. Meanwhile, Sydney is going back to the research hospital, which is great because, again, beautiful set piece. I'm glad we're going back there. That place is awesome.
And the synth rock comes back for the transition drive. Yeah. I love it.
Again, the theme for this movie is great.
It gives the vibe like, all right, this is mission mode. Sister is going to try and find some stuff to save the day. She's going to find the evidence we need.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she gets there at night, and the shit she needs is in the basement. And she even says... Typical.
I laughed so hard because she was so self-aware. She's like, this is such white girl and horror movie trope shit.
She's like, of course. So while she's digging around, they take Madison and put her in gin pop?
Yeah, like, with all the prostitutes
and you out of your fucking...
drug addicts and stuff.
Look, I don't want to tell Seattle PD how to do their job, but this is not how you do your job. You don't put suspected murderers, especially not ones who are mentally... not there, that are legally insane, in gin pop. You don't do it. Well, it's just a bad move.
You and I, even in 21, we're both aware of the way that police handle people with mental disorders or mental deficiencies. The mental health is not taken seriously.
Yeah, that's probably pretty realistic.
Yeah, sorry, that's why I left this lens again.
Yes. And at this point, I am proud to say... I realized about 5 minutes before they revealed it that the tour guide was the mom. As soon as I saw her on the camera and knew she was still alive, I saw her on the VHS video, I was like, that's why Gabriel wanted the tour guide. The tour guide was the mom. And sure enough, Detective Shaw is right behind me and figures it out. Because Sydney finds a couple videos that her and the mom... her and Madison's
Serena
mom
May.
watched.
She is no longer Jane Doe. Her name is Serena May. Yep. Serena May was a 15-year-old girl who was raped, and she decided to give up her babies to the Simeon doctors to help.
Because her mom would not help her raise them because they were an abomination and an affront to God. Yeah.
Well, originally she only said he is an abomination.
Yeah. Good point.
So now that leads you to believe, oh shit, Gabriel is a twin.
Yep.
That's what he is. He's the cancerous twin that should have fucking died coming out the womb. Yeah. But, yeah. And on the tape interview with Emily, after it cuts away from Serena, it shows Emily, who's like 6, 7, 8, whatever.
Normal kid.
You know, before she was adopted, right? Yeah. Before she got to have a normal life. It shows the full-on reveal that Gabriel is a gigantic parasitic twin attached to her back. Yeah. But he's actually considered an extreme teratoma, which is a tumor consisting of tissue, hair, teeth, muscles, and bones.
Yeah.
Gabriel feeds off of Emily. And but unlike most parasitic twins, where the dominant host has control of the body and the mind...
He has enough consciousness. First of all, as a tumor, he should have zero consciousness. But not only does he have enough consciousness to have input, he can sometimes take control of Madison.
And trick her.
Yes, and trick her. And like, he can control her, what she's seen, what
creates
she hears
hallucinations, putting her in this prison world of his own making.
Fucking wild.
Yeah. So the whole time that she was seeing these waking nightmares, she was not seeing waking nightmares. He was making her see what's happening and making her believe she was somewhere else.
Which is, it's so much worse then, because you realize that fucking Gabriel could have just been showing her like Mickey Mouse's Steamboat Willie on loop while he was out doing these things, but he wanted her to see. He wanted her to bear witness to the horrors that he has wrought, because he wants her to know, hey, when I control your body, we do fun stuff like murder people.
And back in the past, before this, we finally see that the people in the Gen Pop are starting to fuck with Madison.
It's kind of weird how quick everyone in Gen Pop became a team to fuck with Madison.
Yeah, all of a sudden they just want to start like smacking her around and punching her and shit.
I get it. You need it for the movie because Madison's getting ready to go fucking AWOL on these bitches. But yeah, it was an odd little turn that everyone in Gen Pop decided to be just a total asshole. And yeah, you get to see the surgery
where they removed the majority of what was Gabriel's body, like his little like T-Rex arms that were sticking out of Madison's back, his heart and rib cage that were growing off of her spine. Yeah, that scene made me very uncomfortable.
It was
when
gross.
They basically pulled his chest apart to remove it and showed her spine underneath his chest cavity. Whoa.
But there's a part in her brain that's too close to her brainstem and it would kill her. So what they did, is they pushed it under the skull and suppressed it. And they were like, well, man, I got hiccups. It's such a small part of the brain now that there'll be no ill repercussions, which turns out they were wrong about.
And up until Derek smashed Madison's head into the wall, that was true.
He popped it out. Well, it wasn't, though, until Sydney was born. Until she had a connection with someone else.
No. I meant it would have stayed repressed.
So we can all say this is all Derek's fault.
Essentially, the dead abuser's fault
it's all
this
Derek's
came
fault.
to light.
Yeah.
But there's also some other tidbit information that comes to light here in a little bit that kind of makes me second guess that it's all his fault.
Okay.
So, Madison has 3 miscarriages.
Yeah.
The reason why she has the miscarriages is because Gabriel is sucking the life out of her fetuses and causing them to die.
Right.
He was purposely draining her baby so he could gain more power.
And I didn't make that connection until Sydney reveals it right at the end when she's trying to get Madison to come back to her. And I was like, oh shit! Like that was one of those oh shit moments where I was like, that's why the miscarriage. Oh my god!
Yeah.
Gabriel is feeding.
That's why he had so much strength right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, he had already taken 2 lives. It was in the process of taking the 3rd life.
Yeah.
And that 3rd life, once the skull was broken open, he's like, all right, cool, I got all the fucking energy I need. I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And again, I'm going to go back to me being upset at the fucking people who did not get this movie. The telekinetic powers, the fucking plot twist that he was a teratoma parasitic twin. Mm-hmm. Like, what they very clearly explained it to you that they thought they killed him. They thought they removed the majority of him from her and that all that was left was this little tiny face pushed into the back of her skull.
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's something deeper about their brains. They explained that their brains are fused together. Their brains grew into one brain together. That clearly explains so much. I don't understand why it was so hard. If you are able to sit there and read and watch fucking Firestarter by Stephen King and not question it, fuck you.
Probably can't question it.
But you question this movie? Fuck you. I'm sorry. That is so stupid. Like, you are looking at all the wrong things to hate this movie about.
Yeah. That fucking explains the walking funny bit.
The actor. So it was really cool. The little background stuff that I had read up on this and watched like behind the scenes on Bloody Disgusting when they were making the movie.
Yeah.
The person who did the stunts for Gabriel had to literally learn how to walk backwards.
Yeah.
How to do everything backwards. The fight scene was all backwards hand cord. Like, that's insane.
That takes an amount of... And not just do it backwards, but make it look like that's your natural mode of locomotion.
So crazy.
Yeah, wild.
So cool.
Yeah.
But hey, contortionists do an amazing fucking job.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, 90% of those movements were like so natural and unnatural at the same time. They really made the movie. If they had fucked that part up, the whole movie would have collapsed under the weight of it.
Speaking of collapsing under weight, my next favorite part in this movie, the jail murders.
We call it the Jailhouse Rock, where Madison reveals her gay beep part.
She exposes Gabriel.
Yeah, Gabriel comes like oozing out of that wound in the back of her head.
Pulling her skull apart to reveal his face as he takes over her body.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, is that what she was going through every single time they transformed?
Yeah.
I wonder why there was blood all over the pillow every time
she came back, there was blood. And yeah, because Gabe has to see what he's doing.
Yep.
And Gabe pulls himself out, and then she straight up backward slave. There were probably 12 women in here with Madison.
Bro, the first one he killed was that one woman who looked like she was something out of the 70s, big afro hair with a long like disco like onesie.
She was definitely Beyonce from Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Bro, she got her whole artery ripped out of the side of her neck with one pinch.
And it was quick.
It's like that thing when you go up to the side of someone's like neck muscle.
It's a Vulcan neck pinch, but with with guts.
It's what
Blood and
Spock
guts.
thought he was gonna do. Like, just grabbed that muscle and ripped it out of her fucking throat, the side of her neck.
Yeah.
Alright. Funniest part is this blonde mullet woman starts throwing all these other women into him.
Yeah.
To avoid getting murdered her damn self.
Yeah.
He throws a fucking forearm all the way through some woman's midsection who had nothing to do with it. She wasn't beaten. She was innocent and all that.
She just happened to... Well, she didn't stop it.
I mean...
And now she did.
I guess complicit is...
Complicit.
Well... Got a hole through the gut, and then he fucking snaps another one's neck on the ground, breaks another one's arms.
He literally, I think there were 12 women in here, and he murders every one of them.
When he finally gets a hold of the blonde mullet woman, he's gouging her eyes out, squishing her head, and the cop finally is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Genius. Gabriel, while he's got his thumbs deep in her skull, uses her as a human shield to catch all the bullets the cop is shooting at him, and then goes right up into the gate, kills the cop, grabs his keys, and breaks free.
And now we've got Gaby on the loose. And we cut to the nerdy crush doctor, who is working on the... is filing away the evidence. And this is also where Gabriel's knife is, Gabriel's jacket and outfit. And like,
I thought she was going to get murdered.
I was like, oh, please don't kill the nerdy crush doctor. I like her. And sure enough,
she's one of the only lucky ones to survive. She had such a minimal role. But
as the door starts getting beat on, she does like a swan dive behind some stuff and moves some things. So she's safely hidden.
Well, luckily that cop that got there right at the door before Gabriel did, and Gabriel killed that cop, gave her just enough time to get away.
Just enough time to save her. Yeah, that cop saved her life.
I'll tell you what, though.
But Gabe comes in, suits up, and gets his weapon back.
The visual of Gabriel putting on the fucking trench coat and grabbing the knife and the gloves, and then you now get to see both his face in the front and Madison's face exposed on the back. Yeah. So creepy. Because you see this, eyes are closed, mouth agape.
Yeah.
Her face is just, and
then he hoods up to cover it up.
Oh,
yeah.
He
hoods up so that
now we get our badass Matrix fight mode.
He goes into the center of like the police station and just starts
every cop up,
killing every cop.
Grabs this one woman and breaks both of her fucking arms upwards through the fucking skin.
That was the second bone reveal of arm breakage. Yeah, that's
in the jail he broke one girl's arm and the bone came out.
Oh yeah, so that's 3 now.
Yeah, 3.
4 if you count each arm separately. Like I say, the people that did this movie like that.
Yeah,
they're like,
funny.
This is choice. This looks good. But of all the murders and kills and knockouts and wounds, my favorite is the fucking chair shot from downtown.
Bro.
That was a 3-pointer.
Technically, he threw it from behind his back.
Yeah.
Because it was the chair was where Madison's face was.
Yeah.
And he just spun a couple times and
chucked it.
Knocked that
perfect shot from across
to the back of the
precinct
dome.
And knocks out Sean, his partner. They hit the mat. Like, knocked the fuck out. And then Gabriel just walks out the front door.
He's
Calm
like,
as you please.
Yeah. He even shakes his coat. And fucking leaves like he just won a fucking boss fight level.
Yeah, which he did. I mean, he fought the whole. He fought the law and he won. Like,
and I did think this was a little bit of a funny line.
Yep.
So when he comes out, she's like, "Oh my God, Regina, Cocoa, are you okay?" Picks out her phone. She's like, "Okay, wait, why am I calling the police?"
Yeah.
Shaw wakes up. He's like, "Call the paramedics."
Yeah. This is why Shaw's not interested in her.
Yeah,
She
I got a good chuckle out of that. I was like, damn.
Oh, yeah.
This next scene, so this is a little, I don't know, I felt a certain type of way about it now, just because my father has one. So they get to the hospital, Sydney is there trying to get to...
Sydney wants to talk to Madison's mother.
Yeah. Has
figured out that the Jane Doe is the mom.
She's like,
also tells Detective Shaw, so... You've got Sydney going to the hospital, Gabriel going to the hospital because Gabriel's going to kill the mom, and Shaw. So all of these people are converging on this hospital room.
Sydney gets there. She's caught off by a security guard who's blocking the room.
Yeah.
He's doing his job.
And he's like,
"Hey, you can't be here.
Talk to Shaw. Shaw's my friend.
Yeah, he knows I'm here well unless he's here with me."
Right, like that's not going to work.
And then the lights start flickering, and this poor old man, he starts grabbing his heart.
His pacemaker. Yeah.
Bro. So it got to me because my father has a pacemaker. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this scene.
Yeah.
And Gabriel has electromagnetic control.
Powers.
He explodes this man's pacemaker
That
in
poor
his
old
fucking
man.
heart,
Yeah.
and he just drops dead.
That dude's only crime was being old.
And Sydney turns around to see Gabriel just standing there,
Yeah.
coming to attack her, and fucking ragdolls her ass. Ragdolls her ass, gets into the room, and she's doing a good job trying to fight back.
Yep.
She gets sliced up a couple times,
Yeah.
but she does good trying to fight back.
Well, she's struggling too because she at this point the hood's dropped and she sees Madison, so she knows she's fighting, and also she's watched the video,
Yeah.
so she knows she's fighting her sister. So she's got a hell of a disadvantage because Gabriel's stronger than her, and she's trying not to hurt Gabrielle because any pain to Gabrielle is pain to Madison. Yeah, it's a bit of a shit show, is what I'm trying to say. And Sydney, I think eventually gets like pushed by like a rolling bed, presses her against the wall. Is that correct?
When she's fighting back, she gets cut up and she goes to slide underneath the bed. And as she's sliding under the bed, Shaw comes in and shoots Gabriel and gets him. She's like, "No, stop! It's Madison!"
Yeah.
And that's when Shaw sees Madison's face.
And
like,
Shaw hesitates.
Yeah,
which cost him.
Gabriel throws the dagger thing into his shoulder, and dude, the force from that stabbing him shoots him, jettisons him back out the doorway, and slides into the hall.
Yeah,
and
that was amazing. Yeah.
Dude, that was a lot of force to throw that shit. It's in there good. Yeah. It's in there deep.
Yeah, you're going to need a professional to take that out.
But luckily they're in the hospital.
Yep.
Wait, did you have to get a transfer to a different hospital if the incident occurs at that hospital?
I don't think so. Different floor, though. You can't do it on that floor. So the mother is trying to talk Gabriel and Madison out of this.
Sydney tries to grab Shaw's gun. She's slipping and sliding, and that's when he hucks the fucking bed.
The bed at her.
And you hear her leg break. And
he corners her, literally,
spitting out of her mouth.
with the bed.
Yeah, he jumps on top of that shit like Spider. He grabs the gun with his backward ass hand and holds it to her head.
Yeah. And then we get Madison begging Gabriel not to do this.
And he's like, "Goodbye, sister.
I want you to watch."
Splat goes the brain.
I want you to watch. So shoots Sydney right in front of Madison. Then goes to the mother, drops the knife on her.
No. He goes to stab her, and that's when she's like, "I know, you were my son, and I should have loved you." Yeah. And instead, he just smothers her to death.
Oh yeah.
He gives her the nicest death he could have given anybody in this movie.
Maybe he's not such a bad guy.
He smothers his mother.
Yeah. And then he's standing there victorious.
I've done it.
Yeah.
My plan is complete.
Feeling real good. And then all of a sudden you hear Madison. It's like, yeah, I've kind of figured out this brain thing now. And we cut, and you see what really happened.
The room is dissolving.
Yeah, the room is dissolving, and it turns out Madison used Gabriel's trick against him.
And now he's stuck in a position with a gun to Sydney's head, but not trigger. The trigger has not been pulled. No. He's just there.
Yeah. And it turns out that I'm not sure what changed, but Madison has finally figured out how to make this one-way road a two-way street. So now she can control Gabrielle's mind the same way he'd been controlling her mind all this time.
She literally built a prison in her mind to keep
him
trapped.
So she fucking straight up jails him. And she's like, yeah, this is it. You get nothing. You get bars. And Gabrielle's like, I'll break out eventually. And she's like,
I'll be ready next
I'll be ready. Yeah.
Which I thought was cool to leave open for a part 2 in the future. If they ever decide to go back to it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. But also, did you notice how the outer side of the jail that she traps him in is all bars, but the door is like, got like the security glass window because he's banging on the door where she shuts it on his face. It's like, interesting jail cell design.
She's like, I like to hear him knock it. It's just me being a bitch. I like hearing him struggle.
Well, luckily, Madison takes control of her body, throws the gun away, strips herself.
What gave her the power to take control is Sydney telling her that the reason the babies are dead is because Gabriel was feeding off
that anger, that pure hatred.
Yeah, it was her motherly instinct and not being able to protect her kids that infuriated her and let her. That's what let her take control of Gabriel.
Yeah, well, he gave himself away whenever he was talking about how he's been waiting. You thought you could keep me repressed. I just was waiting to get stronger before. And that's when I was like, oh shit. He's been doing a lot of because you never actually get indication that Derek was the direct cause. You just it's implied.
Yeah.
Maybe he hit her and that's what she.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sure Gabrielle was like, Derek's a great scapegoat for me, and maybe one day he'll throw her against a wall, and then I can get even.
He was probably like, it's a matter of time before this abuse gets up the ante with more physical.
Yeah, he was not wrong. But what we get instead of that is a happy ending with the mother and Sydney and Madison, all three alive and well in the hospital room, and Shaw crawling in from the outside. And the last thing it shows is a lamp.
Yes, you hear the electrical whirring while they're hugging, and the mom is laying there watching them with tears in her eyes. It leaves it open for a part 2 with that electrical whirring because he's still always in the back of her head.
He's always around. But if all he can do is electric tricks, which is what I hope, because I want Madison to have a nice, happy life. She's earned it. Although she's most likely going to prison for the rest of her life.
So, with that being said, that was Malignant. A very fun watch. It is 2 hours, but it feels like, it really
goes by quick.
I could not believe that it was almost a full 2 hour movie. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It feels like, just goes by. Yeah. I enjoyed the ride that it was. Now, to the main point of the reason why I chose this movie, let's talk about some of the backlash. I put into Google, why did Malignant get such bad and negative reviews?
Yes.
The very first one that pops up is, it felt like James Wan was intentionally trying to make a bad film at times. There are moments that are so shockingly campy and unnatural, it ruins entire scenes of the movie. Also, the theme music was utterly bizarre. It was so over the top and unsuitable, and often played in moments that were completely not calling for it. Some of the music stuff I do agree with, but it didn't ruin the movie. No. It made me just be like, okay, this movie isn't going to try and take itself too seriously, but it's a good story.
Yeah. I don't know. None of that bothered me. But then again, I don't know. This feels like someone being like, I didn't like the spaghetti because it had garlic in it, and I don't like garlic. It's like, okay, well, that's just an opinion. Like, there's no... Like, if you kidnap this person and set them down, there would be no way to convince them that you had the right of it. Because, like, if music takes you out of a movie, it takes you out of a movie. Like, I can't convince you that that's not a big deal if to you it is a big deal. But I strongly disagree.
Now, another reason why I believe this backlash came about was because the director himself, James Wan.
Wow.
James Wan had cultivated such a synonymous name for himself with spooky jump scare movie stuff that I think diehard fans of that style of movies, like The Conjuring, Annabelle, Insidious, that's what they expected.
They expected something, and this gave them something
This
different.
is directly from Screen Rant.
Yeah.
So the first one was from IMDb.
Okay.
Sorry, IMDb. This one is Screen Rant. And it says, James Wan's latest horror opus features less scares and a bonkers twist that has critics divided. Here's why the reviews from Malignant are so mixed. And basically, it comes down to everyone thought that they were going to expect some spooky, supernatural jump scare fest that they come to know and love. So basically, the hate was because he made a movie that was slightly different than what his core fan base liked.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I should fucking hate Peter Jackson.
Right? Like Lord of the Rings, Army of Darkness.
The Frighteners.
Frighteners, yeah.
King Kong. If that's the case, I should hate so many different directors because they want to do different genres.
Yeah.
Like, it's arbitrary as fuck. There's no real substance to the hatred that this movie got. If it's just, oh, the synth music was not my taste. Oh, the twist was bonkers, made no sense. Do you not? I'm sorry, but maybe it's because it felt like a comic thing, and as both of us love comic books, I felt like that was an easy connection.
Yeah, like I said, that did not. I thought those different things went well together, and obviously these people are wrong and disagree.
It's fine to have an opinion on a movie, but at least would make your opinion with substance.
Yeah,
like. When we talk shit about Trolls 2, we have substance for our
reasons.
hatred.
We had a well-documented list of reasons. Here's the thing. I don't even think... If you don't like something, you don't have to have good reasons. But, if you're going to make your opinion an internet opinion, it's a waste of time if you don't have good reasons. If it's just, I didn't like that. I didn't think... I wanted this and it was that. Like, that's not... You're not helping anyone. Like, no one's going to read that review and get a better understanding of the film. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's not even worth the time it takes to type it out on your phone, honestly. Right? Like, because those opinions are not... You're not telling anyone anything. Like, you're back to my previous example. All you're saying is, I don't like garlic.
Yeah.
That doesn't help anyone. Like, that's not, like, you like, yeah, that's nothing.
It's just one of those things where they're like, I expected it to be scary. It wasn't scary. I'm sorry. Like, the things that can terrify me are slightly different. Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, the first time that my fiance and I watched this, we were on a little vacation together, we watched it in a hotel room, and we watched that scene where Gabriel is in the red light crawling over Madison's body while she's asleep. That was a terrifying sight for me.
Oh, there were some definitely jumpy and creepy parts of this film.
Like, the argument that it wasn't scary is falls flat to me, just because, like, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't a jump scare fest like you're used to with Annabelle and the Conjuring movies. Like, again, that's you.
That is the danger, though, as a director or a writer, when you go outside of, even a little bit outside your wheelhouse. But I also think you should do it. Like, when you are a creator, you should switch it up. You shouldn't do the same thing over and over again. Your fans are not always going to follow you when you do that. But you need to be better at what you do. I think he is a better director because he did something different, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that will help him, even if he never does anything like this again. He will pick up little bits from that time making this movie.
People felt like they were misled by the trailer. They thought they were getting some really spooky shit.
Yeah.
And instead they got, like, a supernatural slasher flick.
Well, fuck him. I guess that's my final.
I loved it. I'm totally cool with it. I would love to see a Malignant 2.
Yeah.
I would love for us to have a Malignant 2 in the future, just so we can be like, haha, back bitches.
Yeah.
You know, and let them hate some more. Because you know what? Those people are still going to watch it. They're going to watch it just to shit on it.
They will still watch it. As long as John Woo gets paid, I guess.
But,
yes.
With that being in the can.
All right. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about next month. We are going to go to 1994, and we're going to watch one of my favoriteest horror movies of all time, Into the Mouth of Madness, with Sam Neill of Jurassic Park fame.
My fucking guy.
John Glover, who voiced the Riddler on the animated series, amongst others. And, I have watched this movie many times, and I can't wait to watch it and actually talk about it, because it is one of my favorites. So, for next month, Into the Mouth of Madness, 1994. It's a H.P. Lovecraft joint. Watch it now, thank me later.
This is so good.
Before we wrap up for the month...
Junk Talk!
Time for a little junk talk. And I
have some questions.
Our picks for this month. And as usual, when I pick the short, of course, I've had some questions. This happens every time I have a pick.
This one comes on behalf of my lovely fiance, who probably will never listen to this podcast. So
Fair
I'm just
enough.
asking for myself at this point. Kayla and I would like to know, what the fuck, Dean?
What up with this?
What the fuck?
So we watched The Kid and the Camera, which was a short from Grumbled Entertainment.
I thought you were fucking with me.
Everything was done by Braden Oritz. He wrote it, he directed it, he did all this stuff, except for the narration and the voice acting, which was all done by Richard Stubbard.
So two-man crew.
Yeah, it's pretty much a two-man crew. And, man, it's a weird one.
So, right off the bat, this short is it gives you, with the way that this filter is on this animation, it gives you that it's an old 90s animated claymation.
Yeah, kind of a stop-motion claymation thing.
If you've ever watched, like, Moral Orel on Adult Swim or Chicken Run, you know, it's in that Wallace and Gromit style Play-Doh stop-motion stuff.
So, a very strange approach.
Honestly, and the tone right off the bat had me feeling unsettled. Just the tone from the whirring of the distorted VHS tape effect that they were putting on the filter. Yeah. It very much gave like, oh, this is very old.
Yeah. This is some old found footage
and stuff. It stayed unsettling because of the background noise. I will say this, the entire time, the visuals are not what kept me unsettled until the end. Yeah. It was the sound.
Yeah. It had kind of like a VCR running...
Like, it bothered me. It made me
that tickled the bad part of your brain.
Exactly. I didn't have goosebumps, but I felt on edge.
Yeah, and it's all the more misleading because it's so innocent at the beginning. It opens up with a little boy named Kalen,
and his little camera.
Who gets a camera, and he's super excited about it, and he's taking pictures. And whenever Kaylin takes a picture, it's interesting because it's often said that when you're looking through a camera or a lens on your phone or whatever, it's kind of taking you out of the moment. It's kind of taking you out of the real world. But the pictures that Kaylin takes are real world pictures. So they aren't stop motion. They're actual, like, he takes a picture of a dog. It's an actual picture of a dog. Picture of a tree is an actual picture of a tree. The same way you and I would take a picture of it on our phone.
The picture of his friends.
Yeah, looks like it just like his friends. So it's kind of this weird thing where when he's using the camera, he's actually seeing the world as we see it. But we're seeing his world as this stop motion animation, childlike playland. Sadly to say, poor Kaylin trips over a stump and breaks his poor camera. And it bums him out because this was his favorite gift. All he wanted to do was go through life and take pictures of shit. Yeah, he cracked his screen. Here's the weird thing. He still can take pictures.
They just look weird.
There's a crack in the viewfinder part of it.
Well, no, the actual pictures themselves have this weird distortion.
Oh yeah, that's true. Also, yeah, it has a crack in the pictures as well. So he's getting ready to go to bed, and he's looking over at his camera.
He makes a wish to have his camera.
Yeah,
fixed.
he wishes his camera was fixed, and he goes to bed. He hears some noise, and this is all also has a narrator over the whole thing, so like describing what's happening. So.
The old British narrator.
Yeah, your typical old British narrator, which is perfect for a Wallace and Gromit style looking
90s VHS
children's short. Yeah, and you think this is going to be some like it almost comes off as like one of those educational things where he's going to learn a lesson about sharing or something at the end of it. He gets woken up, and interestingly, when he sits up in bed, the first thing he does is look at the camera. Which I thought was just strange. Like, oh, did my wish come true? Is the camera fixed? No.
Well, he heard something call his name.
Yeah. And he looked at the camera, which was odd. But then he looks at the window when he hears it again. He looks at the window, and he pulls the curtains apart.
And there's a dragon!
There's this cute little, like, moth dragon. It's got, like, butterfly wings. It looks like a Muppet.
Top hat.
Yeah, it's got a little top hat. It looks like a Muppet. Like someone's got their hand in its butt, almost. And it's called the Kipsneed. And the Kipsneed is a sleep fairy that goes around and makes sure all the boys and girls are having restful sleep. And unfortunately, the Kipsneed has felt that Kaylin is not sleeping well. Why is that, Kaylin?
My camera broke.
Yeah, Kaylin is, man, it's really crazy because Kaylin at first does the right thing of being like, well, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. And the Kipsneed is like, oh, no, I'm no stranger. I know all the children. I watch all the children. I know all the children's name. I know all their parents' names. And that's like, oh, this is someone from the neighborhood. Yeah. This is a guy that knows.
Because you forget you're watching this through his child filter.
Yeah. Like, this is somebody from the neighborhood that knows the parents and the kids. And, like, maybe it's the local ice cream man. Like, who knows? But the way he said, like, I know all the kids who are sleeping well. And I know you're not. I even know your name. It's Kaylin. And Kaylin's like, oh, that's a good point. Obviously, we are friends. Like, if you know my parents, you can't be a bad guy. And you know my name. So I'm sad because my camera broke.
I can fix it for you.
Yeah, and the Kipsneed's like, well, if that's the only thing keeping you from sleeping, take your camera, come back to my workshop, we'll fix it, and then you can sleep. And I'm like,
Danger, Will Robinson.
Oh, see, I didn't get that at all. I was like, hey, solution that wins for everybody. Good, problem solved. I want this kid to have a good night's sleep.
I was immediately sus of a fucking giant moth dragon in the top hat. Okay, assuming.
I have the heart of a child. The Kipsneed disappears and says, but you can follow my voice and you can come to the portal to my world. And the kid walks out of his house and he starts following the voice. And along the way, he's taking pictures.
This is where it gets really Blair Witch.
This is where it starts to get Blair Witch creepy. That is the exact theme. Because it's nighttime, a lot of the pictures are coming out black and white. But remember, they're real world pictures. So it'll show this like claymation tree, but then you hear the click, and then it shows the picture he took, and it's of a normal
Like a
tree
flash that lit
at
up,
night. Yeah.
And it makes it even harder because as he's walking through, I visually was okay with it, but auditory, my skin was crawling.
Yeah.
Because the whirring from the VHS is still
louder.
going. It's getting louder, but also you hear the cricking and cracking of him stepping on twigs and leaves, and there's a slight chirp of crickets in the background, and it literally sounds like walking through the woods.
Yeah, there's a bunch of phase shit going on here.
Very Blair Witch
Yeah.
with the woods noises and the camera.
Yeah, and Blair Witch 2 when they come to this old house. And the Kipseed's like, yeah, come inside the warp to my world's in the basement.
It's just down the stairs.
Yeah, and the child hesitates, but he doesn't hesitate long enough.
He goes to walk away, and the door opens for him.
Yeah, and the Kipseed, and he hears the Kipseed's voice again. He's like, okay. So he goes in, and he's snapping pictures to find his way home. That was what he says.
It's so creepy.
Yeah, and so you get pictures of the old house, and then the door, and then the inside hallway, and you can tell no one's been here in forever. Like there's
it's derelict.
There's a derelict old house. There's leaves in the living room. You get to the basement stairs, and for all the shots, even the last shot, which is supposed to be the money shot, the shot that scared me the most is there's a shot from the top of the stairs, and you get to see the Kipseed through the camera lens. So it's in the real world, this crazy ass dragon thing, and it was just so creepy to just have it on the stairs. And I was like, oh my god, kid, turn, and this is when even I couldn't joke about it anymore. I was like, kid, turn and get out of there. This is not good.
Well, then when he finally gets to the bottom of the stairs,
and the next to last picture is of a full-grown man. You only see it from like the chest down.
Yeah.
Standing there, and then I said this line could have been one of those creepypasta one-sentence horror stories. Some weeks later, authorities discovered the basement. I'm like, that could be a horror story. That
and all the bodies.
By itself. Yes. And you see, the only thing that you see is one last shot, and it's of the boy's feet. Literally just his legs, like
severed.
Yeah, no other part of his body. And I'm like, those are the legs that got you into all that trouble and led you here in the first place, little man. But yeah, the rest of the boy was never found. That's the last thing. That's the last line. And then fade to black and roll credits. That is the kid in the camera. What did you think, Goreship?
What the fuck, D? What the fuck?
Man, I was like, I saw this, I was like, yep, this is the one for this month.
I gotta ask, dude, how do you find like these very unsettling random all right, I've noticed that yours is the almost avant-garde creepy horror that's like it's like
I got a type
in the vein that it's so normal it's scary.
Yeah, I got a type, and I think a lot of it's just, you know how YouTube works.
Ventriloquil.
You watch one Ben Shapiro video to make fun of it. Now your fucking YouTube's wrecked with conservative left-wing or right-wing bullshit. It's kind of like this. You watch one creepy video that's in a certain vein, and YouTube's like, oh, we got more of that. Buddy.
Yeah.
And then it just vomits them up on you. But yes, I like this one. I love the claymation stop motion look of it. I like how it's so innocent at first, and it gets so. But even at the beginning, the full Foley work is doing its part to like unsettle you.
Oh, it worked.
And
my skin crawled.
Yeah, by the end, and it conveys the most important lesson I can give you, gentle listener: never trust the Fae. The fairy folk do not mean you well; they mean you harm.
Well, I wasn't sure if that was actually the Fae or if that was actually a human dude.
I feel like
I was so confused.
I actually think it was a dude with like a puppet, like that he was holding up over the.
I thought he might have been a Chuck E. Cheese costume.
Because here's why that made sense. The only times you see him are at the window, where he could have easily have been under the windowsill, and then at the top of the staircase. I think it was a dude with a hand puppet.
Okay.
That's why once the child comes outside, he's like, well, now you just have to follow my voice.
Why did he leave the feet behind, though?
Because I can't let you see me.
Why did he leave the feet behind?
Because that's what got him into all the trouble.
You think that's the run?
No, I have no idea. I think the feet was just supposed to be something scary. I don't know.
It is creepy.
If it's deeper, I don't know. Like, it just as easily could have been a picture of the child laying in the dirt, and it would have also been creepy. But the fact that it's severed right above the, like, ankles is, like, you know, that's a whole nother level of, okay, something horrible's happened here. Also, I guess you can't say the rest of him was never found unless you leave some of him. Otherwise, you'll just say he was never found.
Imagine having to be the parents that have to bury some feet instead in a casket.
Fucking fix the kid's camera next time. This is on you, Mom and Dad. All right. So, that is all for Judgmental Horror Junkies.
It's been a blast.
This was a great one. And next month we'll have another great one. Into the Mouth of
Madness.
Yeah, enjoy some H.P. Lovecraft. And until then, watch out for snakes and watch out for puppets that seem like they mean you well. They probably don't. Anything else, Gorsha?
No, I just can't get over those noises.
I'm sorry. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to hang up here, and we're going to let Foley listen to some Gorship listen to some Enya till he's calmed down. We'll see you next month, everybody.
Adios.